Good morning. I am Michelle Clark. I'm the administrator here at New Bedford Health Care Center. I want to welcome you and thank you all for taking time out of your schedule this morning to participate in our annual mayoral breakfast. And we are fortunate to have Jon Mitchell here, the mayor of New Bedford, with us this morning. And before Mayor Mitchell takes the podium, there's a few things I want to let you know about our mayor. He took office in 2012. And he is the 38th mayor of New Bedford. He was born in the city. He is the son of public school teachers, and he was raised in New Bedford and North Dartmouth and attended local schools. He went to Harvard, where he funded his tuition with financial aid and working in factories and warehouses back home during the summers. After graduating from Harvard with a degree in economics, Jon went to work in Washington, D.C., and remained there to attend the school at George Washington University. Upon graduation, Jon began work as a federal prosecutor in the United States Department of Justice, having been selected to the prestigious Attorney General's Honor Program, one of only 5 attorneys out of 1,500 applicants in the department's criminal division. As one of the youngest federal prosecutors in the country, Jon successfully prosecuted both violent crimes and in the District of Columbia, as well as major white-collar crimes in various parts of the country. After 3 years, Jon returned to Massachusetts, where he worked briefly at the Massachusetts Attorney General's office, prosecuting public corruption cases before leaving private practice at a major Boston law firm. After paying off his remaining student loans, he returned to the role of federal prosecutor as an assistant United States attorney in Boston, in which he prosecuted cases in the areas of white-collar crime, firearms, narcotics, environmental crime, and public corruption. Many of his cases were of the national importance, including his service as a prosecutor on the task force searching for Boston mob boss James Whitey Bulger. Jon served at the United States National Guard, Army National Guard. He's married to Ann, and they are the proud parents of 3 daughters, Grace, Natalie, and Lauren, who all attend New Bedford Public Schools. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Michelle, for that warm introduction, and thank you, Colleen, for hosting today. Thank you both for putting on such this has become an annual ritual, I think. And thank you to everybody for allowing me to eat first. I know getting in here a little bit late, and the food is really good. It's worth it. It's always been great to come back here to talk a little bit about what's going on in the city, just sort of a mini State of the City address. I gave my State of the City address about a month and a half ago at New Bedford Voc, and what I said more or less was that the city is really making progress. The city has a lot of traction right now. We are in the midst of a very significant economic expansion. Our economic development efforts have been all geared toward building on the city's prodigious assets. You know, it's the port, it's the downtown, it's our manufacturers, and what we're seeing is real growth. Some 5,000 jobs since 2011, which is enormous in a city that has a workforce of about 45,000 people. So our manufacturers are expanding, new businesses are springing up, the port is really growing. We've doubled the amount of cargo that's come into the port over the last year. The fishing industry is relatively stable right now, and we're seeing the first signs of a technology sector building in the city. So, you know, all good news, and we're gaining. You know, with every day, we're sending word out that we're projecting a much different image of the city. There is growth. There is progress. And it shows not just in the job market, but also in our school system where, you know, when I came in 3 years ago, the graduation rate, the 4-year graduation rate was about 54%. It's now at 70% now. So kids are graduating more now from the high school. The school system is in the midst of a very aggressive reform effort, and it's starting to take hold right now. the streets. One of my biggest priorities as mayor is to make the place look better. Everybody wants to take pride in the place they live in. And I don't care where you live. And for many years in New Bedford, people were fine with the city not being as clean as it could be, not being free of graffiti, not having trees, as many trees planted as we could. So we've taken it upon ourselves just to make the place look better. We want people to take pride in the place and to have a reason to take pride in the place. And so we've totally transformed the way we do trash in the city. We've seen automated trash barrels, and look, I mean, it's not the most exciting subject, right? I get it, but look, it's when you drive around any city. The little subconscious cues make a difference. So when you see more trees and you see less litter and you don't see graffiti, it makes you feel safer at a level we don't always recognize. It is sort of a subconscious thing, but it is very real. So we have more or less eradicated graffiti from the city. If you see some, don't call it in. We'll get rid of it real fast. We're planting trees, 500 trees a year for each of the next 5 years, and we're on target for that. We've built in the last year 3 brand new parks, Custom House Square, Rivers End, and the Haskell Public Gardens, and we have more in the pipeline and major renovations at Buttonwood Park and at Brooklawn Park. We want people to love the parks here because when you live in a city, the quality of the parks make a huge difference in the quality of life. They need to be clean and neat and safe for children. So we're doing all that, and we're in the process raising the quality of life in the city. Again, it's really about giving people a reason to choose to live in New Bedford, to stay in New Bedford, and for other people to move into New Bedford. That's what we're trying. That's what we're striving for all the time, to give people reasons to believe in this place, because we all know, we've all talked about it over the years, New Bedford has potential. We've all said it at some point. We've all said, if only this, if only that, if only New Bedford can pull it together. Well, the business we're in right now is trying to is to realize that potential. And it's by doing the hard little things time and time again to make people feel closer to the day when we can say, you know what, this really is a great place. Things are great here. And then when we reach that point, more good things will happen. Building that confidence in place, building the pride in place is what my administration is trying to establish. And if you go downtown now, if you've been down there even in the last week, you see the difference. The tree plantings, the place is cleaner, it's neater, there's more vibrancy, more people walking around, a greater connection to the water, and we're doing more of that in the coming years. So we're not taking the pedal off the metal at all. So what we're trying to build ultimately is a city that is seen as the gravitational center of this part of the state. We want people to think of New Bedford, whether you live in Padenham, or if you live in Marion Center, or if you live in Lakeville. We want New Bedford to be seen as your city, because it is. It is. We're not part of Greater Boston. We're not part of any other major metropolitan area. We are our own thing here. And so we want people to recognize New Bedford as the core of a series of concentric circles. That New Bedford is, especially the downtown, is the gravitational center of it all, and that this is a place that we should all be. Whether you live in New Bedford proper or not, it should be the place that we embrace as our own. So that's what we're striving to do. And I don't want to go on for too long, but I just wanted to sort of sketch out for you how things are going in general. But I'm here more or less to listen and take questions, because I know all of you some of you at least have some questions. So I'll stop right there, and you guys can let it rip. Who first? Come on now. I can continue talking. You don't want me to continue talking. Somebody's got to have. I'll do the Socratic method. All right, Deb Lee, can I ask a question? It's just like law school. Just start picking people. No, I'm kidding. Okay, go ahead. Come on, Deb. All right. Yeah.
Where do you, in the next, say, 5 years or even 5 to 10 years, where do you kind of see things, your vision?
Well, as I was saying, so the vision for New Bedford is really to be seen as a city again, not just, not just another community on the southern coastline of Massachusetts. I know folks like to describe the area as the South Coast. We use the term Greater New Bedford. No offense to folks who use the term South Coast, because it really because it elevates the central importance of the city. New Bedford has to be seen as the core, and so that's why, we're working very hard to give people the reasons to live here, to invest here, to visit here, and reasons for for people to, and especially to invest here, because the more we can build up the core, the more people start to gravitate in this direction. So that's the idea, and there are a number of steps to get to that point. We want a city, ultimately. We're not a major metropolitan, but we are a real city, and we want to be seen as Americans start moving back into cities, and they are all over the place, in big cities and small cities. Younger adults as well as seniors, for different reasons, are moving back into urban places. Right? Young millennials want to be in vibrant cities. Lots of seniors or younger seniors want to be, especially empty nesters, want to be in cities because it's just much more manageable. But those are the demographic trends in America. There's been a resurgence of cities and a retrenchment from the suburbs. And how does New Bedford position itself in that demographic trend? Well, here's what I would say. Here's my selling point. I'd say in New Bedford, you get all the upside of cities, of the city life, the cultural institutions, the walkability, the diversity. These are the things that people look for, as well as just the activity, the nightlife and so forth. Interesting neighborhoods, but without the downside. New Bedford doesn't have big city levels of violent crime. New Bedford doesn't have traffic. New Bedford has a much more reasonable cost of living than major metros, especially major metros in the Northeast. So you can have your cake and eat it too in New Bedford. That's what I would say, or at least that's where we want to be in the years ahead.
Question. So when you talk about the nightlife and the safety of the city and things like that, with the college being so close to New Bedford, do you embrace companies like Uber as far as safety goes for the younger kids going out and things like that?
Yeah. So Uber doesn't have, neither Uber nor Lyft have a presence in New Bedford yet. I mean, there isn't a big market for taxis here. We have taxi services in the city, but it really hasn't taken hold yet. Again, because we are, a small to mid-sized city. I do think in the years ahead that, the changes that are happening in that market in larger cities will spill over here.
Do you think that if you got companies like that, though, to come into New Bedford, that it would bring, I know, from the smaller towns that surround New Bedford, all those, I have 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds, they all go to places like Providence and Boston because it's in the city, they could go there, stay somewhere, and not have to drive, use Uber, where maybe if it was closer, you'd get a whole other demographic of people.
Yeah, that's the idea. We're trying to build a critical mass, especially in the downtown, of nightlife and activity, so that more and more folks, especially younger folks, start to gravitate in that direction. They're already there. I mean, if you think about the UMass students that live off campus, most of them don't live in North Dartmouth or in some of the other communities. They live in and around downtown New Bedford because there's just more to do. We're trying to make it even more appealing and it'll take a couple of years, but some of the trick is to build. Is the old saying, nothing draws a crowd like a crowd. So the more that we can build a real neighborhood in the downtown by raising what developers call residential headcount, in other words, more people living in around the downtown, and that could be just hotels, but it could also be apartment buildings. Then you start to see more foot traffic. More foot traffic leads to more retail. More retail leads to more people living there still, and then you can really start to build. So that's the idea, to try to create again more gravity, more mass in the downtown, so that we can have more folks doing the kinds of things that your kids are doing and enjoying themselves here, and it give people all the more reason not to leave. It's we were just talking a couple of minutes ago about commuting to Boston and what a drag that is. It's only getting worse. The Boston economy is growing, continuing to grow very rapidly, and the housing market's getting even hotter there still. it's becoming harder and harder, especially with all the problems with the public transportation system in Greater Boston, to get into the city. So again, the appeal, as I was just mentioning a moment ago, of a place like New Bedford that doesn't have traffic only grows. Bob?
John, on the public safety side.
Did you take notes? You're right. You get.
On the public safety side, you've embraced, Rudy talks about the broken window theory. If you start small and keep an eye on the small things,
Yeah.
it just seems like New Bedford is doing better. It's safer because it's cleaner, and I think people get the attitude of heading up instead of heading down.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that on the public safety side?
Yeah, so crime is, so just to put a data point on it, crime went down 2% in the last year, which is good. It's going in the right direction. It's not fast enough. What we do see is that things like shootings are down, way down. You stand a far higher chance of getting shot in Boston or Providence than you ever would in New Bedford, for instance. So it is most of what we deal with in the city are, I don't want to say petty crimes, but there are, property crimes as well as convenience store robberies by people who are oftentimes addicted. I mean, that's been a big problem, but that's a problem everywhere in the Northeast. So, but it does, the perception of safety and safeness has grown in part because of the things that we're doing in neighborhoods, and that is it. Dealing with problem properties, dealing with again, planting trees counts for an awful lot. Planting trees is probably one of the easiest things, one of the most straightforward, cost-effective things a city can do to improve neighborhood quality of life, because the trees slow down traffic, trees tend to clean the air and make things look prettier, and trees everywhere they're planted in every neighborhood in America, when they get them, raise property values. So we think that's a really sort of a no-brainer investment. But it's the perception of just things looking nicer and neater that I think leads to better behavior. That's people, whether we recognize it or not, take these sort of environmental cues and act on them, and so that's what we're trying to build on, that idea. Go ahead, Deb.
I finally have a question. I
Good,
think there's a lot of excitement around a collaboration with the Council on Aging and Coastline in making New Bedford age-friendly city designation, which we're really excited.
Sounds like a commercial.
Yeah, we're very excited about that. The other question I do have, is there any more news on the rail and the train?
So we continue to advocate for the rail extension from Boston, or I should say the connection. We, they're in a phase right now where they are funding the design of the thing. They're not, and the permitting of the project, and that's going to take a few years because it's obviously a huge project. The design and permitting timeframe is about 5 years or so, according to the governor and the Secretary of Transportation. It's certainly it's a project that we continue to support. We think that a lot of good will come of it. The state transportation system, as I think most of you know, is in difficult financial straits right now, and it isn't operating as well as it should. So there's going to be more money that I'm sure will be poured into the system for largely Boston-based needs, which is never welcome news to us, especially when have been trying for 20 years to build a rail here between here and there. But we'll keep at it. But it's not going to happen anytime soon. I think. I say not going to happen anytime soon. We have to continue to press, and that's the idea. There are a few years left of design and permitting, and so what I would say to folks is that it is a very important project. It's not the only important project in the city. We want state investment in the port. We want state investment in our roads. We want state investment in the downtown, and so. We have to be careful about thinking of South Coast Rail or any other one project, casino or anything else, as being the end-all be-all, because there is no end-all be-all when it comes to public projects. We're trying to build a diverse economy that is rooted in the city's assets and builds on the city's strengths. So South Coast Rail is really good. It's just not the only thing. Anybody else?
Do you think eventually we'll see a casino in the city?
Well, so let's talk about the casino. So casinos in some cities have not worked out so well. In other cities, they've been complementary to the other things that the cities do well already. And so the question for us is, for me, is always, could we make a casino work in this place in a way that enhanced what the city does well and not detract from it? So we're not, so as we started to talk about a casino on the waterfront, the question for me was, is this going to affect the maritime economy? Because it's waterfront property, and the old saying is, God's not making any more waterfront property, so you have to use it well. And a casino isn't a maritime use, right? You don't need to be on the water to pull the slot lever, right? So there's that. I was concerned about the effect of the casino on the downtown. Casinos in many places are these big garish, fluorescent, monstrosities that might not look so good next to a Whaling Historic National Park, right, with the cobblestone streets. So that's a concern. And the other concern is, it's is one about the city's image. So we are much more than a casino, and we want to be known for being the biggest commercial fishing port in America, for being the center of the world's whaling industry, for having a diverse set of ethnic neighborhoods, of having a hardworking citizenry that is very tightly knit. We want to be known for all the things that we love about New Bedford. So what I tried to do, and I think we succeeded in this way, is to enter an agreement with the casino developer that would address those concerns. So what did we do? So as it turns out, there isn't, on that site, there isn't a whole lot of maritime industrial that could be done there effectively because the water isn't deep enough. You can do some commercial fishing boats, but you can't build a major cargo facility there because the water's too shallow. It is a very contaminated site, and it's not likely that anybody else would come in and spend the $40 to $50 million that it would take to clean it up and to put it into some other use. So the cleanup prospect is a big part of the equation here. With respect to the downtown and the image, which are related issues, what we tried to do is soften the appearance of the casino. So we did a few things that other communities didn't do around the state that had entertained casinos. One of them was we put a height restriction on the buildings. So the hotel will be 11 stories, which will be substantially smaller than what the developer had proposed initially. Initially, they proposed two towers, 120 stories, 123 stories, which would have stood out like sore thumbs on the waterfront. So we've reduced that greatly. We've put put a restriction in about signage, several restrictions about signage. So they can't put a big casino sign at the top of any of the buildings. They have to be far lower. So, people driving into the city aren't going to see, Foxwoods or whoever the operator is at the top of buildings. So we didn't want that to happen. So that mattered. They need to use building materials that are consistent with what we already have. So bricks and cobblestones and bluestones instead of, glass and cement, and no billboards in the city, no casino billboards in the city. We wanted to create a place that would lead people out of the casino into the downtown. So we put a cap on restaurants and retail. They can only have really 2 stores, so it's not going to be a place to shop. They have to have a few restaurants, which they will, but they're not going to have enough to serve everybody who goes to the casino, so they're going to have to leave and walk to the downtown. That's what we want to encourage. We got them to put a convention center in the mix. So, with any convention or conference center, but I don't know where the line is between a conference center and a convention center, but it's a facility that will hold some 2,000 people. So, look, if you get 2,000 people at a conference, some are going to gamble and some will have absolutely no interest in doing that. And so where will they go? They'll go elsewhere within walking distance of the place, and so that'll bring people into the downtown. So we put a marina on the site as well, so that there's boat traffic and a connection to the water. So there are all these steps that we took that I think will soften the casino. On the good side, it will create a lot of jobs, and it will create jobs in a way I believe that won't take away from other industries here, because a casino, as the only casino in the southeastern part of the state, there will be people coming into New Bedford to spend money, and that's a good thing. And then there are the payments to the city. I know I'm getting into lots of detail. I'll wrap it up. But they agreed to pay $12.5 million a year to the city. And one of the things that we did that was different from every other community that has, again, entertained a casino license is we're taking about $5 million of that $12 million, and we're going to be put it into economic development agencies. So instead of it going into the city's, some of it, the 7.5 will go into the city's coffers, but the other 5 will be effectively used to reinvest in the city, reinvest in the port, reinvest in economic development, reinvest in historic preservation and parks, so that we use the casino opportunity to move the needle in the city, to do the things that we don't have enough money otherwise to do. It seemed to me the only way to do this. It's a very important part of the deal, but one that I think will, if it all comes together, will pay dividends. And whether we get this thing or not remains to be seen. They're making progress. So the market for gaming in southeastern Massachusetts is just barely strong enough to support the size of the investment that they're proposing. And so, you know, what will have to fall into place in the next few months is the financing will have to become cemented. And then it'll be a contest between Brockton's project and New Bedford's project. And I like our chances, of course, but I'm biased. But, I mean, that's how it'll play out, and the licensing process will play out over the next several months. And it probably won't be until, you know, mid-next year before we know who gets the license.
Thank you.
You bet. I know it's a long explanation, but it's not a topic that you can just give a soundbite answer to. You know?
Thank you.
You bet. All right. I think I don't know. So it looks like people want seconds. It looks like there's room for. There's plenty left. It was really good. It was really good. But thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And you know where to find me if you have any other questions. But it's great to see everyone here today. And you know, if there's any other 112-year-old women living here, make sure they come next year. I'll be ready for them. Thanks, everybody.
We're the stronger than we look type. The braver than you think type. The type that's sure the time will come when we put type 1 behind us. We're the progress is inevitable type. The rise to every challenge type. The type that knows bit by bit the future is certain to get better. We're the plan for a cure type. The improved life along the way type. The type that will stop at nothing. Absolutely nothing. Until type 1 becomes type none.